Good afternoon, and welcome to Iowa Child Care Resource and Referrals Training, CDA, the best first step. We're glad to have you here with us. We're going to take a few minutes to go over some guidelines and support for the webinar. The mute button has been turned on for all attendees. You should be able to hear us, but we will not be able to hear you. If you do have questions during this interactive webinar, you can post them in the question box. We'll go over where to find this option shortly. If you're connecting to audio through the computer speakers, please make sure the computer audio bubble is selected. If you are connecting to audio through your if you're connecting to audio through your telephone, please make sure the phone call bubble is selected and call the dial number provided. Be sure to email if you have any issues, and we'll respond as quickly as we can. The navigation toolbar can be expanded to see the question box and handout areas. If you do not see the boxes, select the down arrow next to the tab to expand the box, and the viewing area should appear. If you could each please take a moment to enter your name or the group you are attending with, we would appreciate that. The individual handouts are also listed and can be accessed during the webinar. When you click on them, they will open in a PDF format. Don't worry about saving the handouts, as they can also be found on our new CDA webpage. A certificate of completion for this training will be mailed to you by your regional training specialist at the end of the training. You'll also receive a brief survey of questions. Please take a moment to answer the survey, as your feedback will help with planning a future staff training. This webinar will be recorded for future use, and I'd now like to start the webinar. Please welcome our CDA training work group.
Well, welcome, and thank you very much for joining the CDA, the Best First Step webinar. I'd like to introduce our presenters and our team. Leanne Andre is from Region 4, a Child Care Consultant Supervisor. Jenny Moon is from Region 3. Pam Mahoney is a Teach Counselor. And then I am Terry Orr, Region 2, Child Care Consultant Supervisor. Again, this is a live webinar. It will be recorded and added to our website. So if your coworkers have missed it, you'll be able to catch up on that later. And all the PowerPoints and handouts will be added as a resource as well. So as we work with providers and staff in early childhood programs, you might be asked the question or want to have that conversation surrounding the CDA credential. We hope that this information will help give you those key topics to discuss, resources to use, and next steps as you work with your providers. Our learning objectives today are to learn about the CDA credential and its benefits, learn about the CDA process, including eligibility requirements and the CDA assessment, understand your role in the CDA process, and provide resources to get started and help those providers take the next steps towards earning a CDA. So this is a fast-paced informational session and will give you lots of basics as a CCR&R staff. We encourage you to get to know who in your area is a professional development specialist or works with CDA candidates as additional resources. And we'll list those as a CDA contact in each region on the final slide. Again, please use that chat box, as Bobby had explained, to ask any questions along the way, and we'll address those at the end.
A credential is a certificate, letter, or experience that qualifies somebody to do something. Once you have demonstrated the skills and show that you are competent in the competency goal and functional areas set by the Council for Professional Recognition, you will be awarded a CDA credential. There are three setting types that we are addressing today: family child care, providers who work with children 0 to 5 years of age, infant toddler, those who work with children 0 to 36 months, and preschool 3 to 5 years of age. We'll now look at the CDA website and show you where you can get information. So on the CCR&R website, there is a link to go to the Council for Professional Recognition page. And that gives you information. It talks about renewals. It talks about finding a PD specialist, how to purchase books, and gives more specific definitions of the age groups or the setting types. So the concept for CDA began in the late 1960s. Why did it come about? Because there was a large number of mothers returning to work and more children in childcare. Research studies showed the importance of early childhood experiences, and a tool to monitor quality was needed. In the early 1970s, a group of innovative early childhood educators gathered together to think about how to improve the quality of early care and education. Originally funded by the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, more than 420,000 CDA credentials have been awarded to date. Approximately 18,000 early childhood professionals become new CDAs annually. How do we identify providers that are ready to move on? We'll use your iConsult strategies. There are opportunities to identify providers that are ready for a CDA, and those could be at times when you're working with them on ChildNet, the certification visit when you're looking at their goals. It could be QRIS planning, or reviewing their training hours and identifying the amount of hours they currently have. Someone with lots of training hours, you might ask them, have you ever considered applying your hours to a CDA? This is a self-survey created for a CDA training for providers. You can use the CDA self-survey as possible questions to pose to the provider or as topics of discussion in moving towards a CDA. Have the discussions to help guide them towards looking at their own professionalism, goals, and future plans. The answers they give can help give insight on whether they may be a good candidate for the CDA process. Do they seek out additional trainings for more learning? Plan activities for children based on their age and interests? Do they send out newsletters? Do they hold parent conferences? Do they have meetings to communicate with parents? Do they utilize the CCNC for identifying changes in their safety policies or environment? And do they truly believe they are a professional? A CDA may be the next step for them. So some of the benefits of a CDA are enhancing skills with young children. It's a nationally recognized credential. It also can increase career opportunities. It's recognized by Iowa for quality initiatives like the QRS, IQ4K, and IQ-PPS. It can be transferred for college credit at many of Iowa's community colleges, and it increases your confidence.
So now that we've talked a little bit about what is a CDA and why you would maybe want one or help support provider in getting one, let's look at the steps of a CDA. There are 5 basic steps in achieving a CDA. Step 1 is preparing and looking at their training. Step 2 is preparing and creating a portfolio. Step 3 would be demonstration, when the professional development specialist would come and observe and work through goals. Step 4 is earning your CDA, and then the last step is renewing, because it's a renewal process. So the process may take 9 to 12 months or even longer, and it really depends on how many hours the provider currently has, how motivated they are, how much time they have to devote to the process, or how organized they are in creating their portfolio. There really is no set deadline of when it needs to be completed. So one example I have is when I worked with a home provider that had 75 hours already in place before she asked about getting her CDA credential. We mapped out a timeline of specific things to do each month, and I met with her about every 4 to 6 weeks to review her work and keep her on track. It took her about 9 months from the time we started to meet to get her CDA, but she was very motivated, so it took a little bit less than most people probably. So the first step in preparing, you need to make sure that they have their high school diploma or equivalent and have 480 hours in that setting they are seeking. So 480 hours in an infant, toddler, preschool, or in family child care. So if they're working full-time, this will be only about 3 months of experience. And then we start to look at their training hours. They need 120 hours, a minimum of 10 hours in each of the 8 subject areas. So you might want to do this as maybe a cohort, peer support group, or individually in helping them move through the CDA process. At this point, you can discuss with the candidate on which type they wish to seek and how that might benefit them in their role or future goals. Home providers need to be registered in order to seek a family child care CDA. 120 hours of training at a minimum is needed to apply. They also need to have CPR, first aid, mandatory child abuse reporter training, and this all counts under the CDA content area number 1. It only counts once, so they count the most current one they have. The 8 content areas listed on the training tracking form, which we will review shortly, includes establishing a safe and healthy learning environment, advancing physical and intellectual competence, supporting social and emotional development, establishing productive relationships with families, ensuring a well-run, purposeful program, and maintaining a commitment to professionalism. The training hours are cumulative, and they go back as far as they have taken training. So they can count all those training hours when they started taking them long ago. There's no time limit how far back they can go. As long as the training represents current practices and are awarded from an agency or organization with expertise in early childhood, they will count. We'll talk more about training a little bit later in the next slide. Once the candidate determines the setting they wish to apply for, they can order the competency book that aligns with that setting. We'll click on that link and show you a little bit of what that would look like. These are available on the Council for Professional Development website under the Council store. There's a green one for preschool, the yellow is infant toddler, and the blue is family child care. They're $25 a piece, and they're really necessary in order for them to move forward in getting the CDA because it has information on there, including what they need for that specific portfolio for that setting, a copy of the family questionnaires, the paper application if they wish to apply that way, the scoring instrument for their verification visit, and other information that'll help them in getting their CDA. Also part of the preparation process is the family questionnaires and portfolio, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the slides. So for training hours the candidate needs, they can be obtained as credit, which is college courses or CEUs, or non-credit options. So if we click on the link, there are some college options that might be good for some of those people that are looking for for those credit courses. And some of those people might be seeking something more like an AA or BA, and a CDA is their first step. So this might be a good option for them to do. So here is the link, and there's other community colleges if you scroll down that you can see that they can click on and find some options for them for community colleges. So that's a good resource to maybe tap into. Also, another good resource, of course, is the Iowa Training Registry for some non-credit based trainings. Of course, those ones would be like CCR&R or Iowa State offers. Organizations such as AEA and Head Start would also work. The DHS website, of course, has a list of approved trainings and training organizations that might be helpful as well. One training organization that I know a provider used was Child Care Education Institute for obtaining her hours. She paid the annual subscription fee for a year and got her training hours that way for her CDA. The certificates that they seek must have the participant's name, the number of hours, the instructor, and the CDA content area. The trainings do not count for conferences or individual consultants. Some of those providers that maybe took trainings years ago before we listed the CDA content area in there may not have those, so it takes a little bit more work to try and help identify that. The Iowa AYC website also has information and is a good resource. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is the training tracking chart, which we just created. That's usually the first step to kind of help identify the hours that they have and where they're at in the process and helps them with planning piece. So if we can provide this to the candidate, it's a good resource and it helps track those hours. So here is a snippet of the training tracking chart. It's a new resource that was just created. There's space to record all the 8 CDA competency areas, as well as a summary page to record and a plan for trainings or content areas they need yet. Again, you must have those 10 hours in each of the 8 areas, so the remaining 40 hours can fall in any of the areas. Typically, candidates have plenty of hours in CDA content area number 1, which is health and safety. And that's where essentials, CPR and first aid, or safe sleep would fall. And they have trouble finding trainings in area 7, observing and recording, or number 4, establishing relationships with families, or 6, professionalism. This form will be found on the CCR&R website on the CDA page and is a great resource as a first step in consulting with a provider who is looking for a CDA.
This form outlines the CDA competency goals or areas. There are 8 areas identified on the training tracking form, and this form may be helpful in looking at what trainings fall under in each competency area. It can be useful in helping to look at trainings that may not list the CDA content area on the certificate, especially for those older trainings. This form is found on the CCR&R website on the new CDA page as well. The portfolio and summary cover sheets are forms included in your CDA packets. The portfolio cover is one that provides greater detail on the specific order of the portfolio contents. Use it as a checklist as you build your portfolio. The summary of your education is just that. It's a summary of your education broken down in the 8 CDA subject areas. Copies of your education, such as certificates, transcripts, letters, etc., would follow this cover sheet. The 4-column sheet in the previous slide has competency goals, functional areas, content, and examples when referring to summary of education. For example, when you attend CPR, it falls under Competency Goal 1, Functional Area 1. You would list this under number 1 on the training tracking chart. Family questionnaires, you need 50% returned and need to use these to complete the summary sheet in the CDA Competency Book. Resource collection is a collection of items such as sample menus, weekly plans, bibliography of books, samples of record-keeping forms, family resources guide, etc. There is a list in the CDA book that outlines specific items needed. 6 reflective statements are reflections on the resources collected, such as reflecting on your sample menu and how it meets the children's nutritional needs. What would you change, etc. Each statement should be less than 500 words. Professional philosophy allows providers to reflect on their beliefs and values about early childhood education, how they believe young children learn, and what their role is. It should be no more than 2 pages in length. The CDA book's outline of what is required in reading the competency standards in the book helps give you insight to what will be observed in the verification visit, as well as help guide what best practices are. The professional portfolio is typically organized in a 3-ring binder, file box, or can be created online. The next slide has some pictures. Here are some examples of portfolios. Providers need to organize their portfolio the way that makes it best for them to utilize from this point forward.
All of the requirements must be met in step 1. The training or college credits, portfolio, family questionnaire should be completed. Candidates will apply for the credential at the Council for Professional Recognition's website at yourcouncil.org. The online application costs $425, or they can fill out a paper application that is in the Competency Standard Book for a fee of $500. Candidates should be encouraged to apply online for $425. Teach will not cover the $500 paper application. Candidates have to create a username and password, and it is very important that they write these down as they have to go in and out of their online application several times. This is an example of your council application, what it looks like. This is an actual personal dashboard. There are tabs over on the left for candidates to create their portfolio, find a professional development specialist, and etc. Candidates will receive communication from the council on the right side in the message history. They click on the magnifying glass to view a message. A professional development specialist is an experienced early childhood professional who has been trained and meets all of the eligibility requirements by the council. When finding a PDS, make sure there are no ethical conflicts of interest. Examples would be a direct supervisor, immediate relative, or a coworker in the same group or classroom. As a consultant, you could be a PDS for those that you are not directly involved with yet. The state really needs more people to be PDS. A professional development specialist can be found as part of the online application or on the council's website. But if the candidate knows the PDS and has their PDS number, it can be put into the online application. Just list the letter P with no spaces and then the numbers for the PDS. If they are at a center as part of the online application, they put in the director's contact information, and then the director will receive an email to verify employment and hours worked. Once that has been verified, the candidate will be notified via a message in their online application. A response is needed from the director in 60 days, or they will have to start the application over. Home providers verify their own employment and hours they work. Teach has scholarships to help pay for the $425 fee. Candidates will have to fill out a separate Teach application, which can be found on our Iowa AYC website or get obtained from their Teach counselor. The candidates will sign a contract with Teach, and if at a center, the director will have to sign also. As part of the online application, candidates are assigned a customer ID number. The candidate will take a screenshot of their customer ID number and the review and payment page when it asks who will pay the $425 fee. They will send these screenshots to their Teach counselor. This will show Teach that their online application is complete, and Teach will go into our agency account and say that we will pay the assessment fee. The council then issues a candidate a message with a voucher number. The candidate will go back into their online application and enter the voucher number and continue on with the application. Candidates will receive detailed instructions on how to apply to the council for their Cda credential. A Teach scholarship pays 85% of the $425, and that requires a $65 copay from the candidate. But Teach will pay the whole $425 fee to the council. After the candidate receives their credential, they will receive a $200 bonus from Teach if they get the CDA with training hours, and a $300 bonus if they get it with college credit. The provider must stay in the early childhood field for 6 months, not necessarily at the same center or home. There is no cost to the program if center-based. They just have to allow the PDS to come and observe them and possibly get a sub to let them have time to meet with and reflect with the PDS. Candidates should really contact Teach early in the process to secure funding for the CDA assessment fee. And we'll take a quick link to our website where you can get any kind of information about Teach and who will pay for it, who's eligible. Over on the left side, if they click on the CDA, it gives them all the information that they need. And feel free to contact me or any of the Teach counselors for any questions. This is our flyer that we give out, and it is called 6 Simple Steps to Getting Your CDA. It is a flyer that outlines what the CDA is, the CDA competency goals, the criteria in achieving a CDA, and how Teach can help. It is a good resource to share with the potential CDA candidates. And there is a link, as we've said, on your CCR&R CDA resource page.
When they apply, they will be assigned a customer ID number. They will need this to schedule the exam and to give to teach. The Ready to Schedule message will be part of their Your Counsel online application. It is a message in their personal dashboard. Your PD specialist will receive an email too, and it is required to contact you using the online application to set up the visit with you. You can reach out to your PD specialist first if you know them. Your PD can't come for a visit until they receive the Ready to Schedule notice from the council. Confirm your visit date with your director also. Record the date and time and be ready for the visit. The CDA exam can also be scheduled through your council online application, or you can call them at a Pearson VUE testing center. The PD specialists come on site and uses the ROR, which stands for Review, Observe, Reflect. First, reviews your portfolio. You need a quiet space to do so for about an hour. Second, observes you within your program environment. Must work with the ages you are seeking for CDA, preschool or infant toddler, or family child care. This takes about 2 hours, and children should be awake during the visit. Third, reflect with you. You need to meet in private to discuss strengths and areas for growth. Reflective dialogue is encouraged from both you and the PD specialist. See the worksheet in the CDA Competency Standard Book that outlines topics to discuss. A comprehensive scoring instrument found in your CDA Competency Standard Book is used to document the work they see in the observation within your portfolio and discussions with you. You need to give the scoring instrument to the PD specialist as they arrive for the verification visit. Reviewing the forms in the back of the CDA Comprehensive Standard Books helps you prepare for the visit, what will be covered and what they are looking for. Review the competencies and examples of what is covered in each within the CDA book. The scores from your visits will be submitted to the council within 48 hours of the visit. Your next step, take a CDA exam, or this exam can be done before the visit. Go to www.pearsonvue.com/CDA exam to find a location. Schedule time to take the exam via the website or phone. This can also be done as part of your Council Online CDA application. Once you get a confirmation notice, you will get directions to the test center. If you need to cancel, it is $15 cancellation fee each time you cancel. Must give at least 24 hours notice to cancel, or it will be an additional $65 for the second exam. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete the exam. Most complete in 1 hour or less. It is taken on a computer and reminds you when you have 30 minutes and 10 minutes remaining to complete. It is a 65 multiple choice question test. You can flag a question if you wish to come back to it and review the answers before you submit them. You need to take your ID and nothing else. No phones, purses, backpacks, etc. While there is no formal study guide for the exam, sample test questions can be found in the book of the Competency Standard Book, in the back of the Competency Standard Book. The essential textbook and accompanying workbook are also ways to prepare for the exam. The Essentials book contains all of the information on the test. The exam will cover all ages, even if you are seeking a preschool CDA. The visit and exam can be completed in any order as long as they both are completed within the 6-month deadline. Your CDA exam score and verification visit scores are combined into a final cumulative score to determine your credentialing decision. The candidate does not see these scores. Automated system is not available now, and award determination is usually available in 48 hours after completing the visit and exam in your council application. You can print off a temporary certificate, or a paper one will be mailed to you. If working with Teach, send a copy to Teach counselor to receive your bonus.
So the first thing to do after they get their CDA is to celebrate their success. It's very hard work to obtain a CDA credential, but also know it needs to be renewed. You might want to discuss this process with the candidate so they're aware that it's an ongoing process. There's a renewal packet you can obtain to help you with this process, which is free and on the Council's website. The online process itself costs less and is much faster than the paper one. So the renewal fee is $125 online or $150 with a paper application. The requirements for renewal: current CPR and first aid, 80 hours of experience with children in the last year in that setting that they have their CDA, 3 college credits, 4.5 CUs, or 45 hours of training, and that could be a combination of any of those 3. A letter of recommendation from an early childhood professional. That could be their director, or it could be a child care consultant staff from CCR&R. Talk to your director on what role this might be for you and how that should be done. Your CDA contact persons for your region might be able to help you with some samples or how to do this. So again, this is an ongoing process. They renew every 3 years. They can apply for renewal up to 6 months before their credential expires, but make sure to caution them if they don't renew on or before their expiration date and it expires, they have to reapply as a new credential. So that means starting all over again. And TEACH has CDA Renewal Scholarships, which covers the cost of the 3-credit class to renew. So newly added is our CDA website on CCR&R, was something that our group had created because we knew that you would want more information and resources. So when we click on that, we kind of broke it down with what really is a CDA, so a little description of what the CDA is, the address and information to contact them, how to get a CDA, so those initial steps. So if you want to have those conversations with a candidate, these are the initial things to kind of start talking about. Do they have their high school diploma? Do they have the 120 hours of training? What do they have for work experience? And start to talk about ordering that competency book. And then the why. You want to make sure to kind of talk about those whys and why people would like to have a CDA. These are some good talking points for you, or some good things to maybe answer them when they start to consider a CDA. And the bottom is the provider tools. Those are the tools that we have introduced in this webinar. The professional development plan for the training hours is that training document that we introduced in Word format. So you could click on that and they can download it and enter all their training hours in that way. The self-survey form are those good questions to start asking the providers in those conversations. The Simple Steps CDA flyer is from Iowa AYC, which is a good 1-page flyer. And then the training content form, which Jenny introduced to utilize for maybe trying to figure out where maybe some of those trainings fit when you're not really sure. And then the bottom links are those resource links. It links us back to our CCR&R training page. And then we also linked the Council for Professional Recognition, and kind of bookmark some of those really specific pages that are going to help you in different pieces as far as applying for a CDA, looking for those competency books, this credentialing checklist, which is a nice resource, or maybe if you're renewing a CDA, you can go right to that link. And of course, the Iowa Association for Education for Young Children. So all of those links are on there. So this is a really great resource if you're thinking that you would like to try and help someone with a CDA. This is a good first step for you and also any providers, because anyone can link that. It's under the provider tab. Under there you would go to how to achieve a CDA. So either providers or yourself can go to that page and find all of that information. Right there. So we'd like to thank you for your attention and support on the CDA process. I know that was a quick half an hour, but it's a very nice first step for this provider seeking more professionalism in their field. So the next step for this is looking at offering more CDA training opportunities for providers statewide. So remember that survey will be coming up here at the end, and we really would like to have you communicate your needs to help guide this work that will continue to grow in our areas. And then on a slide are your contact people for each region that can help you with any questions or information about the CDA. All of the handouts and the PowerPoint will be on the CCR&R website for you to access. The PowerPoint, I believe, will be on the staff side. And of course, we showed you all the resources on the provider side. So before we wrap up too far, I'm going to kind of turn this back over to Monique and see if there's any questions that we would like to answer.
There currently aren't any questions written, but what I can do is I can unmute. If you raise your hand, I can unmute you and you can ask questions if you have them. All right. So far, I'm not seeing anybody has any questions. So. So I guess as you guys are going through the process and you do have questions, contact your regional contact person and we'll make sure we get the answers to you.
We'd like to thank everybody for attending the training, CDA, the best first step, and we will be ending the webinar now. Thank you all of our speakers.